Hello. Literally, my thing was on top of my camera. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for the sub, Rothman and Pearl. Hello. I recorded part 2 of the brain fog, pain frog today, so I'm a little bit frogged up. That's the story. That's the story here. That's the story. Huxella, thank you so much for your tier 3 sub. Also for Rome. Oh my goodness, fancy subs in the chat. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I'm a little bit frogged up today. Didn't feel like taking it all off. Figured I might as well enjoy it. Figured I might as well enjoy my frogness just a little bit. So the mic for my microphones are a little bit broken right now. My microphones are a little bit broken, but you might not be able to tell, and the reason that you can't tell is because I'm not touching them. Okay, I'm not touching them. But rest assured, if I touched them, you would know. So there's gonna be no wonderful mic touching today. Unfortunately. Yeah, the ringing's gone because I'm not touching it, bro. Okay, that's why the ringing's gone. But I am in contact with Rode customer support, and we will figure it out. We'll figure it out. Did you end up figuring it out? No, it's not my job to figure it out. That's someone else's job. And I'm in correspondence with them, okay? I'm in correspondence with them. We'll see what happens. Do you have trinkets you can tap or scratch in the mics instead? Well, I can do like this. And if I'm being completely honest, that's gonna be mostly what I'm doing. Because I have my document next to me open, and we're gonna be talking about the Renaissance today. I'm actually quite excited, alright, about what we're gonna talk about today. Because here's the thing. I love all of the people that I'm about to talk about, okay? All of them are so interesting, and we're just doing a little character study. Last time we were really focused on Savonarola, and basically his story. He was a Dominican priest who was a little bit spicy, too spicy for one of the worst popes in Catholic history, and he was killed and arguably martyred, but he's not considered a martyr in the Catholic Church because he was killed by the Pope. So last stream we talked really all about Savonarola, which sounds like a delicious pasta dish, doesn't it? Savonarola, like a sauce. He sounds like a sauce to me. A sauce that belongs on pasta. The rain story was peak history. That's true. That was humans humaning. Very, very true, Hulkzilla. Today, we are not talking about just one guy. We are talking about 1 million guys. And unfortunately, no women, okay? We might mention some women. Some women will be mentioned, all of them named Lucrezia. There's like one woman named Clarice, but like there's like 1 million women named Lucrezia. It's very confusing. And then there's 1 million men, all with different names and that have contributed different things to history. Have you by chance played Assassin's Creed 3? No, I have not. Every time I talk about the Medicis, though, there's some guy just like you, okay? Every time I talk about the Medicis, there's someone's like... But I did not know Savonarola was in that, though. That is exciting. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. There's also every time I talk about the bicameral mind, someone brings up Westworld. That's another one. That's another one. I haven't seen Westworld, and I'm pretty sure the origin of consciousness and the breakdown of the bicameral mind is misrepresented in Westworld. Because every time I bring up the origin of consciousness and the breakdown of the bicameral mind, people are like, oh, isn't that debunked? I learned that on Westworld. It's not been debunked, and I don't know why Westworld is even talking about it. But anyway, that's a different topic. That's a different topic. Different topic. Thank you so much for your prime. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Choo choo, choo choo, hype train and stuff. Hype train. The brain fog, pain frog enjoys the hype train. Ooh, I enjoy it. I enjoy it very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Today we have a lot of visual aids, okay? I'm so excited to show you my visual aids. It's kind of hard to see right now, though. Ah! Okay, I think if I do this, something will happen. Ah, yeah. Platon. Platon. This man is Greek. This man is not in the Renaissance. This man is pre-Renaissance. So, I want to tell you all kind of the theme we're going with today, okay? The theme that we're going with today is legacy, apprenticeship, community, generosity, and caring about shit, caring about people enough to remember them, because that is kind of a thing that is like unique about this time and beautiful about this time. People really, really cared about legacy and apprenticeship and keeping track of stuff, because there weren't really like big, I mean, there were schools, there were plenty of schools at this time, but there wasn't like you didn't have to go to school. School was a very different thing. School was a very, very, very different thing at this time. And so whenever you talked about where you learned something, you talked about your teacher, not a school. You talked about your teacher, you know? And that's the distinction. That's the distinction. Hello, Ultraman. Was it a luxury? Yes. Yes, but also, I mean, it wasn't, like, getting educated wasn't, like, the highest luxury. Like, there were plenty of people who got educated. It wasn't the highest luxury. And also, it didn't necessarily mean anything. Like, you could be a merchant and not go to school and be doing way better than someone who went to school. You could be a cobbler and have not gone to school and be doing way better than someone who went to school. You know what I mean? So it's like, I would say education, different types of education, it was kind of like its own way of life. Not exactly, it wasn't seen as needed. It was seen as needed by the people who needed it. You know what I mean? It was seen as needed by people who needed it. But when I'm talking about education, I'm also not talking about education as the way we think of it. I'm talking about, like, when people got apprenticed, they weren't necessarily learning math and science. They might have been, but like, you went out, whenever you figured out who you wanted to be and what you wanted to do, you went out and you found a teacher and you became their apprentice. And so you learned sculpting. You learned sculpting from that guy. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you became an apprentice. Teaching the trades, all of it. There were also intellectual trades. Everything was a trade. I think that's what I'm saying. Everything was a trade, okay? Like, being an expert in science was like a trade. Like, it was a trade. And being a sculptor was like a trade. And like, you just found a person and like, you became an apprentice to them. And that was really cool. That was really cool. That's why teachers and apprenticeship and legacy like became really important to these people's memory and self-identification and their story, okay? So, that's kind of the theme that we're going with today. Talking about legacy, memory, the trade of knowledge, passing down. So I think the most fun way to do this might just be going through my little slideshow. So we talked about Platon very briefly, I think whenever we were talking about the Council of Florence. The Council of Florence. The Council of Florence. I need to move this. Maybe. Here we go. The Council of Florence. Because Platon was the expert on Plato, okay? And he was Greek, so he came to the Council of Florence with all of the other Greek Orthodox people in an effort to unify the church. And he spoke so beautifully about Plato. And Plato was kind of not, it hadn't been translated into Latin. It hadn't been translated into anything that Italian people could understand. It hadn't been translated into Tuscan, Milanese, any of these other things. I don't know if Milanese was a language, maybe a dialect. But it hadn't been translated, and so Plato, what people knew, there was probably a guy named Plato, but they didn't know anything about him. Ancient Greek could be comprehended by the Greeks. Yes, Hoxilla, by the Greeks. So, anyway, Platon was a Greek Orthodox Plato expert, and he came to the Council of Florence, and he spoke so beautifully about Plato, that he inspired Cosimo Medici to hire Ficino. Ficino is our favorite hunchback that we've talked about a little bit before, right? Let's see, I think I have a picture of him as well. Let's see. Actually, I don't think I have a picture of Ficino. I apologize. No Ficino pictures. But Ficino was the guy who was hired by Cosimo to live on the estate and just talk to Cosimo about Plato, Greek philosophy in general, but especially Plato, and translate all of Plato's work and other Greek philosophers into Latin. Ficino was a priest. Okay, he was a priest. And he helped Cosimo establish the Platonic Academy. So these were contemporary with the Medicis as well? Yes. Platon would have been old. Platon would have been old, okay? Ficino was also old, but Ficino and Cosimo Medici were good friends, and they truly revitalized Platonic thought in Florence, Italy, and that was, that inspired a lot of the humanist movement. And it is one of the main reasons why Cosimo valued art and artists and being generous with his wealth as much as he was, okay? So now we're going to talk about so many different artists and thinkers of the Renaissance, most of whom were funded by Cosimo Medici. So first, we're going to talk about Donatello. I'm sorry for the howling dog. One day I'll get it. One day I'll get that dog. But it's not today. Donatello is one of the great sculptors of the Renaissance. Let me show you what he looks like. Let me show you what Donatello looks like. So Donatello is on the right, and then on the left, maybe I can't show that on Twitch. Maybe I can't show that on There we go. That's probably fine. That's probably fine. That's probably fine. Donatello was this guy, okay? Donatello was the apprentice of Brunelleschi, and he was inspired to do sculpture by Niccolo Niccoli. We've already talked about these people. Do any of y'all remember what these people did? I'll write Brunelleschi here as well. Niccolo Niccoli is the guy who collected 1,000,001 manuscripts. 1,000,001 manuscripts, and worked tirelessly to what's the word? Rewrite them, to scribe them out. What's the word I'm looking for? Niccolo Niccoli. Let's go back up and read a little bit about Niccolo Niccoli. Copied manuscripts forever, and his handwriting modeled italics. Transpose, yes. Transcribe? I think that's what I wanted. Transcribe. So Niccolo Niccoli, he was the guy who was transcribing for that was the main work that he did. But he lived with the Medicis, and he was a great appreciator of the arts. But because of the letters that we have saved from him, we know that he always felt inadequate as an artist himself. So he supported the arts. He loved the arts, but he did not see himself as an artist. But he supported and inspired Donatello to do sculpture. And Brunelleschi taught Donatello a lot of his earlier fine art stuff. Whenever Brunelleschi, the guy who built the dome of the big cathedral in Florence, Brunelleschi went to go visit the Parthenon in Rome to rediscover how the dome was built. And at that time, Donatello was in his service as his apprentice, helper. And so Donatello learned a lot about shape and sculpture from Brunelleschi. And Donatello's probably most famous piece is David. Do you remember the name of the church which contained the dome? I know it was Maria del Fiore. I think. Donatello's most famous piece is the David sculpture that's down here, minimized for Twitch. That guy doesn't have enough clothes on for Twitch. That doesn't have enough clothes on for Twitch, you know? So there's a lot of speculation about Donatello. I'll read y'all exactly what I wrote. Donatello was a favorite of Cosimo Medici. A little bit suspiciously of a favorite of Cosimo Medici, if you get what I'm saying. But definitely not, serious. Okay, what I wrote is, I picture him as a BPD girl failure femboy. That's kind of what Donatello's vibe was, okay? Donatello was messy, Messy, messy. Donatello was messy, dressed badly, obsessed with his art, had a lot of temper tantrums, didn't care for himself very well. But Cosimo loved him. Cosimo loved him, gave him a place to live, made sure he always had his art supplies. Donatello didn't care how he looked, so Cosimo bought him one day a whole set of snazzy red clothes. And Donatello wore them for a few days, and then he completely gave up on it, reverting back to his workers' clothes. And Donatello, in his studio, had like a big bucket. And whenever he did commissioned art pieces for people, he would just tell them, leave the money in the bucket. Leave the money in the bucket. Just leave the money in the bucket. He never counted how much money he had, and he would tell his own apprentices and assistants to just pay themselves out the bucket. Just pay yourself out the bucket. Because he had no need for money, because Cosimo Medici was taking care of him for his entire life. He had no need to worry. And he did not worry. He did not worry. No one would take the whole bucket, Hulkzilla, because they respected Donatello, and it would have been a shitty thing to do. Because this was a time when people had, like, some integrity, and also integrity was expected of them. It wasn't just a time when people had integrity, it was a time when integrity was assumed of the other, okay? So no one was worried about someone taking the whole bucket, because who the fuck would take the whole bucket? Come on. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on. But what if someone did? Bad, 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 bad. No one's gonna take the whole bucket. So he made this gay David sculpture for Pride Month, okay? Not actually, but sure, he made it for Pride Month. And he made it for Cosimo. And it stood in the middle of the courtyard of the Palazzo Medici for many decades to come. And in his will, he asked to be buried next to Cosimo in the Church of San Lorenzo, the Church of San Lorenzo, the Church of San Lorenzo. So it's very clear that they had a very close relationship and that they did love each other, perhaps not romantically and perhaps not even sexually, but they definitely loved each other, you know. And Donatello was gay. He was with his assistants for sure. We know for sure that Donatello had relationships with his assistants. So yeah. Pit Piper, thank you for your sub. Thank you. Now, the next guy that we're talking about is named... Oh! I did have a picture of Ficino. This is our favorite hunchback, Ficino. Ficino. I can't remember if I have a picture of Poliziano. I don't think I do have a picture of Poliziano, so let me get one. This guy, yeah, this guy. Next we're going to talk about this guy. Poliziano. Pronounce the C more lightly. Which one? Which guy? Ficino. Figino, 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 Figino. But next we're going to talk about Poliziano, 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 Poliziano. So Poliziano was really good friends with Lorenzo the Magnificent, who was Cosimo's son, okay? So Cosimo Medici had a son, and already Cosimo Medici was hosting like 5 or 6 artists at a time at his place, usually, you know? And then he had a son, and so his son grew up surrounded by these great artists and surrounded by like sort of an environment that romanticized funding these artists, right? And then also Cosimo Medici cared so much about this intellectual and artistic legacy that he was building in the Palazzo Medici, Palazzo Medici, Palazzo Medici, that he also like took in kids on top of his own 2 kids and raised them. And one of these was Poliziano, 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 Poliziano. So Poliziano moved in at some point, probably when he was, I don't know, a youngin', not super young, probably like a teenager or something like that. And he ended up being like a poet, but also like a very political poet. He did a lot of like snarky political poetry. Snarky political poetry. He was fluent in Greek and Latin, and he absolutely worshipped Lorenzo de Medici. Lorenzo de Medici. Lorenzo de Medici. And Lorenzo de Medici loved him too. They were BFFs. Unfortunately, eventually Lorenzo de Medici got married to a woman named Clarice. Lorenzo and Clarice had a very political marriage because Clarice had ties to the Pope, cardinal family, and the Medicis needed a little bit more, insane by the way, but they needed a little bit more influence on the Vatican. So, kind of had a politically arranged marriage with this woman named Clarice. And Lorenzo was caught between Clarice and Poliziano many times. Many times. Because Clarice was a good Catholic, and Poliziano was a highly political, humanist, poet, philosopher, bard who was always like talking shit on everyone. And so whenever Lorenzo had kids, sometimes Clarice would catch Poliziano saying some unholy things to the children, teaching them about, humanism in a way that she did not appreciate. And so she would get really mad, and she would say, Lorenzo, your best friend is ruining our children's education. Your best friend is going to turn our kids into bad people. And Lorenzo would be like, please, Clarice. Relax. And she never did. They really didn't like each other. Clarice and Poliziano. A lot of what we know about the social dynamics within the Medici family, about like how people felt about their wives, how flirtatious different people were, who was a womanizer, who was not a womanizer. A lot of these little details come from the writings of Poliziano, because he wrote about everyone.
He would write snarky poems about everyone. He would gossip about everyone. But he was also, you know, kind of a historian and a proper poet in his own right. And he wrote beautiful things, unserious things, serious things, seriously troubling things. He wrote everything. Everything, everything, everything. Now we have another brainy guy, alright? Another brainy guy. This guy, Mirandola, Pico de la Mirandola, Pico de la Mirandola. This guy is one of my favorites. I'm such a fan of this guy. Pico de la Mirandola, 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 Mirandola. He was incredibly smart. The smartest. Of all the people we're talking about, this guy had the biggest brain on his head. This guy had the biggest brain on his head. He looks gay as fuck, respectfully. Yeah, the book that I'm reading also describes him in exactly those words. And is like, and yet he was a womanizer. And yet he had, I have a feeling it was kind of like a K-pop situation. You know what I'm saying? Like people liked it. I think people were into his vibe, okay? People were into his vibe. People were into his vibe. I wrote, very demure Renaissance man, intellectual, well-studied humanist. He was into the esoteric and the scientific and the religious. He wrote, well, he was trying to write like a theory of everything. And so he knew more than 20 languages. He knew more than 20 languages. Like research level knowledge of over 20 languages, okay? Research level knowledge of over 20 languages, which was like, that's kind of hard to do nowadays. At that time, it would have been so much harder. So much harder. So much harder to learn 20 languages. Hello, chicks. Hello, chicks. He studied under Ficino, of course, to learn about Plato. But he also studied really deeply into, you know, physics and biology of the time, which was very underdeveloped. Physics and biology were like, you know, really just starting. But he was into astrology, physics, biology, math, architecture, all of it. And he was striving to make a philosophy of universal truth, uniting all knowledge. He really wanted to marry humanism and Catholicism. And he wrote a massive 900 thesis thing, okay? Like a massive thing. And he said, oh, and he wrote it, and he published it, and he begged for a debate. He put it out as the start of a conversation. He tried to write a theory of everything, and then he said, challenge me. That was his major publication. 900 theses, syncretism, here's my theory of everything, here's my philosophy of universal truth. I beg you, challenge me, challenge me, challenge me. Of his 900 statements, the church found 13 of them heretical. And he was arrested and escorted to Rome. And so Lorenzo de' Medici, of course, with all of his charm, Lorenzo the Magnificent is known for just being incredibly socially gifted and rescuing people, especially the Medici family, but also artists, rescuing them from awful situations with just his charm. So Lorenzo went to Rome, intervened, and the Pope permitted Pico della Mirandola, permitted him to live in Florence. But it seems like Pico was always kind of pissing people off because he died of being poisoned. He died of being poisoned at the age of 31. But he was an intellectual, and he did a lot before then. Was he killed? Probably. Probably so. Yes, Lorenzo was the Medici who was the opposite of unfortunate. He was quite fortunate. Truly. Have you read his theories? Do you agree? I haven't read all 900, goodness gracious, but I did read a little bit. On the dignity of man, he said, I wrote an excerpt. You have been placed at the center of the world, more easily to observe what is in it. You have been made neither of heaven nor of earth, neither mortal nor immortal, so that with freedom of choice and honor you can make yourself into whatever you wish. You have been placed at the center of the world. You have been placed at the center of the world, more easily to observe what is in it. You have been made neither of heaven nor of earth, neither mortal nor immortal, so that with freedom of choice and honor you can make yourself into whatever you wish. Was it ever discovered who did it? No, we don't know who killed him. But he must have been pissing people off. He was a debate bro, okay? Pico della Mirandola? Pico della Mirandola was a debate bro. He was a very smart debate bro who was well studied and knew 20 languages. Ugh, don't you hate it when your favorite debate bro knows 19 more languages than you do? How do you argue with that? And so they just poisoned him. Just poisoned him in the end. Such a shame. Also, he was hot, apparently. Yeah, people went after him. Like, he was a womanizer. Now, Botticelli, who I believe I also have a picture of. He was another kiddo that was brought in by the Medicis when he was young, so he grew up surrounded by artists. Botticelli grew up surrounded by artists. He grew up listening to Poliziano talk politics, and he grew up listening to Mirandola talk about the world, and Ficino talking about Plato, and he grew up near Donatello and Lorenzo and everyone. He grew up surrounded by them. And Botticelli means little bottle. It was a nickname given to him, probably by his brothers when he was a child. Little bottle. Little bottle, yes, from a little bit. He was tutored by Filippo Lippi, who's one of my favorites. So Filippo Lippi was the previous generation of artists. Y'all, I have a video coming out that's like a Filippi, like a POV, you are Filippi Lippi roleplay. It's coming out sometime this month. I can't remember when. I think the 8th, actually. I think it's kind of soon. The 8th or the 11th, someday this month. I can't remember. But I have a video coming out where you are Filippi Lippi. Filippo Lippi taught Botticelli. Filippo Lippi, his full title was Fra Filippo Lippi, Fra Filippo Lippi, Fra Filippo Lippi, Fra Filippo Lippi, right? So what that means is that he was a father, okay? He was a priest, and he was an artist. He was slightly pre-Renaissance, just very slightly pre-Renaissance. Very slightly pre-Renaissance. Kateril says fraud. Are you accusing Filippo Lippi of being a fraud? Because I'm interested. But yes, Destiny. Yes, Destiny 5213. I am the brain fog. Pain frog. Filippo Lippi was a Catholic priest who went around painting Madonnas. What I wrote in my notes about Filippo Lippi was he made Madonnas, he destroyed Madonnas. Because so he would go to these monasteries and he would be like, I'm painting a Madonna. And the sisters would be like, okay. And then he painted a Madonna modeled after this sister named Lucrezia. Madonna is the Virgin Mother, Mary, the Virgin Mother of God. Mary, quite contrary. And so there was this girl, that was a sister, there was a nun named Lucrezia, and Fra, as in father, Filippo Lippi and Lucrezia, like, fell in love and eloped together. And then they were almost put to death. And I think it was Cosimo Medici, if I remember correctly, not Lorenzo, but it was Cosimo who went to the Pope and said, please don't kill these people. Filippo Lippi is an incredible artist. Please don't kill them. And the Pope said, fine, and just dispensated their vows. And they ended up just living happily ever after and making a family. So, that's the story of Filippo Lippi. But Filippo Lippi taught Botticelli. Botticelli was enigmatic in character. Yeah, he was hard to predict. Everyone has something different to say about Botticelli from, like, the historical record, you know? Like, some people really liked him, some people really hated him, some people were like, that guy's crazy, some people were like, that guy's focused, some people were saying that guy has anger issues, some people were saying he's so nice. It was multiple popes, Mordrin, it was multiple popes. I can't remember which one it is for this story, but it was before Alexander the Sixth. It was one of the better ones. I mean, not better, like low standard, but it wasn't one of the bad ones. And Botticelli also worked on the Sistine Chapel. And for his entire life, Lorenzo de' Medici made sure that Botticelli was being employed by very, very fancy people. Lorenzo de' Medici did not commission Botticelli himself very much. Like he did with some other artists. He always made sure that he was getting connections for Botticelli. He always made sure that he was getting new connections for Botticelli. Bill, thank you so much for gifting a YouTube membership. Thank you. From the image you have, he does look mysterious and intriguing. So this is a self-portrait, and it's in the presentation, I think that's the word, the presentation of the Magi, the approach of the Magi, I think it's the presentation. But something that a lot of these artists would do is like sneak a little self-representation into their own work. So this is a self-portrait of Botticelli in one of his paintings of the Magi. The Gift of the Magi? Maybe. I can't remember. I can't remember. Are you real? I am real. Someone else. 6957. Like when artists draw characters of themselves. Yes, exactly. 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 I like it when the eyes move. I like. Indubitably. Okay. Moving on. Now we're getting to the big guys. The big guys. Leonardo da Vinci. Da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was born in 1452. He was a country boy. He didn't even speak Latin. He showed up working for the Medicis, and both Pico della Mirandola and Poliziano were like, this guy is stupid. Why is he here? He does not speak Latin. He's stupid. What a stupid boy. That's what they said about Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci dressed himself very nicely and cared a lot about his personal aesthetic. And he was also a little bit of a womanizer. I believe this, I can't remember what this quote is from. I think this quote is just from my book, not a primary source. But this is what they had to say about Leonardo. Leonardo's precocious artistry was recognized by Lorenzo and his circle, but his intellectual precocity they simply dismissed as the hobby of a talented ignoramus. Plato had written above the gate to his academy, "Let no one enter here who does not know geometry." Leonardo knew no geometry, no mathematics, and would not learn these for another 10 years. Instead, he taught himself by studying with his eyes, by examining things closely, by looking and recording precisely what he saw. Leonardo was like completely self-taught. And I'm sure that y'all have seen, movies and like whatever. We have books and books and books and papers of like Leonardo's brain, of his sketches, of models of the human body, and planes and aircrafts and technology. He was completely self-taught. No one taught him. And some of that knowledge had already kind of been around. I mean, not like planes and stuff, but like there was sort of a tradition that he could have tapped into. And he didn't. How is he a womanizer? He was literally gay. He was gay, but he was canonically hot. He was hot. People were into him. In 1476, he was publicly denounced for sodomy. Plenty of people were gay at the time, but it was usually kind of like a don't ask, don't tell situation, you know what I'm saying? Like, we know that Donatello was gay. We know that some of these other guys were probably a little bit gay, but none of them got charged with it, except for Leonardo da Vinci. Which is shitty. He could have been burned at the stake, but the law was a little bit relaxed with him. That did not happen, but he was probably a little bit paranoid about it for the rest of his life. Leonardo spoke highly of Botticelli's character, but Leonardo kind of would slyly insult Botticelli's art quite often. He said that Botticelli's art was it wasn't realistic enough. It was too mythical. Leonardo da Vinci had trouble finishing problems. That's not what I meant to say. Projects. He had trouble finishing projects. He had a lot of half-finished projects, including, it's kind of a well-known story, but even the Mona Lisa, he was never quite satisfied with. He had a hard time being satisfied with anything. Leonardo da Vinci. This, of course, is Leonardo. This is not Leonardo, but this is the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa. And this is Leonardo. I see it. I see what people are talking about. But yeah, he was too interested in everything under the sun. Kind of ADHD vibes, but I hesitate to diagnose from 500 years in the future. I do hesitate to diagnose from 500 years in the future, but it is a little bit of an ADHD sort of vibe, isn't it? Ah, yes, this is also a fun tale. A fun tale about Leonardo da Vinci. He was basically assigned a servant by Cosimo Medici named Giacomo Sale. Giacomo Sale. Giacomo Sale. And he hated him. Da Vinci was like, ugh, I hate having assistants. I hate people in my space. I get him away. I don't like this. I don't like this. And then he wrote a really angry letter to Cosimo Medici, and he was like, he's stealing all my money. He's stealing all my money. I know that this man is stealing my money. I hate him. Get him away from me. And it's true. It's true. Giacomo Sale stole some of Leonardo da Vinci's money. And then they fell in love and lived happily ever after together. They were a couple. And they became lovers forever. And then Leonardo da Vinci spoke kindly of Botticelli, as we said. Didn't like his art very much. But wholesale, Leonardo da Vinci kinda hated Michelangelo. And this is Michelangelo. This guy right here. Michelangelo is a Renaissance artist, also funded by the Medicis. Very, very much funded by the Medicis, encouraged by the Medicis, and in this legacy that is completely supported by the Medicis. Brunelleschi was funded by Cosimo Medici, who taught Donatello, who was funded by Cosimo and Lorenzo de' Medici. Donatello's apprentice was Bertoldo, who taught a sculpting school. And Michelangelo was never formally apprenticed by Bertoldo, but we know that they spent a lot of time together when Michelangelo was young and when Michelangelo was learning. So this is what I'm saying when I'm talking about how important like legacy is, and apprenticeship and community. Like all of this happened because the Medicis put everyone in a room together. They put a whole bunch of artists in a room together and they said go. And they said, go. And then they went, and then the Renaissance happened. Okay? And it's not that many guys. And all of this happened in 2 or 3 generations. It's incredible. Michelangelo was obsessive, okay? Michelangelo finished stuff. Michelangelo, even though he was a Renaissance artist, he had a sort of medieval mindset, and that's one of the main reasons why Leonardo da Vinci did not like him. Leonardo da Vinci was like, Michelangelo is a religious crazy guy. He is crazy. Michelangelo is crazy. Michelangelo was born in 1475. He started his apprenticeship at 13 instead of 10, which was considered old. He was like, he was cooked, you know, starting at 13 instead of 10. He went to school, everyone was 10 and he was 13. And they were like, ew, what's this old 13-year-old doing here? He was beaten by his dad for being too into art. His dad was like, you're gonna be a farmer. And he couldn't stop baby Michelangelo from sculpting out of clay. Sculpting out of clay. One of Michelangelo's origin stories is that he was outside the Palazzo Medici, which is like the big house where the Medicis kind of hosted everyone, and he was carving with hammer and chisel the head of an old grinning satyr, and Lorenzo teased him. This was the first interaction between Lorenzo de Medici and Michelangelo. Lorenzo came up, full adult at that time. Lorenzo came up and said, you know, a real old satyr wouldn't be having all of his teeth. And instead of taking the joke, Michelangelo was like, gosh, dang it, you're right, he wouldn't have all his teeth. Ah, stupid. And then he fixed it. And he spent hours fixing it. He doubled down and perfected it. And Lorenzo was amazed at this young artist's dedication. And so because of that interaction, Lorenzo invited him to live and work in the Palazzo Medici for 5 florins a month. 5 florins a month, which is like an adult person's salary, like an adult with a family. You could like support a family off of that. And this was one kiddo. Doing well. Does this outfit mean we're getting a new roleplay YouTube vid? Yes, I am the brain fog pain frog. It's not coming out very soon. It's coming out towards the end of the month, but yes. Yes, that's what's happening. What exactly is going on? You'll catch on, Hollow Circus Studios. I believe in you. You'll catch on. Ah, yes, and this is the Felipe train. Masaccio was a painter who was sponsored by Piero the Gaudi. And then, not that guy, this guy. And then, Masaccio inspired Felipe Lippi, who we talked about before, made Madonnas, ruined Madonnas. And Felipe Lippi fathered with Lucrezia, the Madonna who he stole from the monastery. Fathered Filipino Lippi. How did he ruin Madonnas? Because he married them. Hulkzilla. He married them. And then he had a baby with them. That's what I mean. That's the joke. If you want to see the Renaissance, is it better go to Florence or Rome? I think probably Florence to see the Renaissance specifically. How many did he marry? Just one. Lucrezia. But he might have flirted with some more before he met Lucrezia. Their names sound like Pokemon evolutions. What's the final evolution? Filipinoito, if I had to guess. That's my cat, bonking the mic again. We can't do this anymore, girl. You can't bonk my mics. It doesn't end well. I have to not let you do that. Anyway, that's all the Renaissance artists that I wanted to talk about today. But I think the coolest thing about this whole thing is that the Medicis just took a bunch of artists, put them in a box, and said, go, 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 go. And they all taught each other, and they all remembered each other, and they cared enough to record about their legacy and who apprenticed them and who they were apprentices for. Which one was your favorite? I think of all the guys we've talked about today, probably Mirandola is my favorite, but he wasn't really an artist. He was a scientist, something like that. He was a scientist. How did you fix the ringing? I didn't fix the ringing. I just fixed my behavior. I'm just not touching the mics. I'm just not touching the mics anymore. We don't get to have nice things, which means that we don't get to touch the mics, and that's how that goes. Nope. No touching the mics. No touching the mics. Deep within Sleepy Soul is screaming. Yep, it is. It's true. That's true. Now we get to transition to just doing some probably more normal ASMR content. Unless we want to do more Renaissance. I always have more Renaissance stuff to say. But what do y'all think? What are y'all hungry for, huh? What are y'all hungry for? Crazy Bears are ASMR at its finest? I think so too. More Renaissance? More history? Okay. Enjoying learning? Okay, if you insist. If you insist. I had a feeling I would end up speed running a little bit too much today. I had a feeling. I had a sneaking suspicion I would end up speed running. Let's see. Did we talk about the assassination attempt on Lorenzo de' Medici's life? Did we talk about the assassination attempt on Lorenzo de' Medici's life by Pazzi? P-A-Z-Z-I. There was a, during Lorenzo de' Medici's life, the Medicis had some competition as the, financial lords of Florence. And their competition was the Pazzi family. P-A-Z-Z-I. P-A-Z-Z-I. And the head of the Pazzi family was Messer Jacopo. No, girl, no mic bonking. I don't know how to pronounce this name, so y'all can help me. Messer, and I don't know how to say that. Is it Jacopo? Is it Jacopo? Is the cat's eye okay? Yeah, the cat's eye is great. She's great. Jacopo? Jacopo? I'm getting different. Okay, Bruca I know is Italian, and Bruca says Jacopo. Accent and co. Jacopo. So that was the head of the Pazzi family. And his son, Francesco led a plot to assassinate Lorenzo and Giuliano. There, that name also feels weird in my mouth right now. Giuliano was like universally loved, and we know this because of the stuff that Poliziano wrote about him. Giuliano fancied himself a heartbreaking womanizer guy that was like too good for all these girls, but in actuality it was him who was like a serial monogamist who kept getting his heart broken, and everyone like was so endeared to him, and he was attractive and like kind of an idiot and had like a heart of gold, but also was like a mess, like romantically a mess. And he was the brother of Lorenzo de Medici. And there was a plot to assassinate them both from the Pazzi family, and the Pazzi family was going to assassinate them at Mass in the front of everyone, in front of all of Florence. They were going to assassinate them at Mass. And folklore would say that this happened at Easter Mass, but that's not actually what happened. It was not Easter, but people, sometimes you'll see that said. It wasn't actually, though. The plot failed. Lorenzo de Medici had an incredible escape from the church, but Giuliano did perish from poisoning in front of everyone at Mass in the church. It was a mess. It was sad. It was fucked up. It was really bad. So then the head, worth noting, people really like the Medicis at this time because the Medicis are sponsoring like a lot of public projects. And regardless of whether or not people like the Medicis, they tried to assassinate them at Mass, which the very Catholic population of Florence is not gonna like. So it was Jacopo's son who did this whole little plot, but Jacopo knew that he was where the buck ends, so he was going to get blamed for it, and he did get blamed for it. As soon as this happened, he fled on horseback to a small hamlet where he was... he fled to a hamlet, but he was recognized by the peasants there. He was recognized by the peasants, and there was so much ire against him that the peasants were like, yeah, we're not going to let you just hang out here. We're not going to let you just hang out here. So they brought him back to Florence, where the Florentine justice system took its course and more. Okay, trigger warning, everyone. Trigger warning. This story gets awful. This story is brutal. I have told this story before to people, and they have been like, I wish you hadn't told me that, okay? Trigger warning. This is gross, brutal, body horror, blood, gore, gunk, not relaxing. I'm not very sensitive to these things, though. I'm just interested, so I'm so sorry I bonked the mic again. So, yeah, strap in. So, he was brought back to Florence, where he was brought to the Bargello. We mentioned Savonarola was tortured here last time, right? This happened before the whole Savonarola escapade. But the Bargello is one of the most famous torture dungeons in Florence. Torture dungeons. So he was brought into the Bargello and tortured. And then he was dragged out into the streets. And truly dragged through the streets to the point where his skin was hanging off his bones. And then he was dragged upstairs and hung out a window in just his underwear with 4 of the main conspirators of this plot, this assassination attempt, this plot. He was hung. And then he was buried at a church. He was buried at a church. And then it rained really, really hard. It rained really hard. It didn't stop raining. And the citizens of Florence were convinced that this was a curse, that this was punishment, because Jacopo did not deserve a proper burial. So they dug him up. And then they reburied him in unholy ground. But the peasantry of Florence, it wasn't enough for them. It still wasn't enough for them. So they dug him back up a second time. And they dragged him, his corpse, naked through the city. And they used his head as knockers on people's doors knockers on people's doors so that people could laugh and point at the body and humiliate the body. Humiliate the body. And then they threw him into a river. Arno. They threw him into the Arno River. And then another band of boys found his body down the river. They found his body down the river. And so then the band of boys took his body out the river and started parading his body around even more, using it in little skits, using it in performances, using him as a puppet and like killing him again in front of people for entertainment, killing him, the puppet of his carcass. And then they did a mock rehanging of him, and they beat him with sticks like a piñata until his bones completely fell apart. And then he was finally thrown into a river for the final time. And that is the story of Jacopo. 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 Lorenzo, in order to avenge his dear brother who died at the hands of these Pazzi conspirators, commissioned Botticelli to make a mural of the 4 conspirators hanging, and for a long time that painting was one of Botticelli's most kind of grand and on display pieces of work, because everyone really did love Giuliano, and this was their way of kind of honoring Giuliano's memory, was painting the 4 hanging conspirators in this beautiful mural. Eventually, unfortunately, that mural was destroyed, and we do not have it anymore, but that's one of the things that I am definitely much more sad that we've lost. More sad that we've lost. Once more into the river for good measure. Exactly, Pancake Man. Exactly, Pancake Man. Exactly, pancake. At least it didn't start a world war. That's right. That's the right spirit. That's the right spirit. That's the right spirit. Sleepy, what do you think in the theory mentioned that it was Piero de' Medici who poisoned Mirandola? I didn't hear that theory. Wait, what? I want to know. Why? Why would Piero poison him? Was it Piero the Unfortunate or Piero the Gouty? Which Piero? Sorry for bonking the mic. Yeah, give us the deeds, Quanta. Give us the deeds. I'm gonna look that up right now. Piero de' Medici poison Mirandola. Let's see. Oh, the New Yorker has a article about it. Isn't this the kind of thing I have to pay for? Do I have to pay for the New Yorker? I think I do. The hypothesis is that Piero the Unfortunate poisoned Pico della Mirandola because Pico was siding with Savonarola. Oh, that's juicy. That's incredibly juicy. Graziano had died 2 months apart. I'm reading an article from the Royal Society of Chemistry. At the time their passing sparked speculations and suspicion throughout the cultured world of the Renaissance. Eventually, court gossip pinned their demise on either syphilis or poisoning. Court gossip. Yeah, this is definitely a chemistry website. I like the theory. Look, I like the theory that Piero the Unfortunate poisoned them. I don't know if it's true. I also like the idea that Piero the Unfortunate was really just down on his luck and trying his best. You know, he almost had to, like, make up for all of the incredible good luck that Lorenzo the Magnificent, his father, had. Lorenzo the Magnificent was born lucky, truly. Piero the Unfortunate seems to have been given, just the short end of the stick throughout his entire life. Hello, Earthman dear. Hello. Welcome back. The subject eats. I'm in school for BA in history. I'm doing Mediterranean Civ to 750 CE and world history since 750 CE. That's awesome. Like, the craziest thing about this to me is that all of these people are their own 5-hour stream. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna do a 5-hour stream tonight. I'm probably gonna just go like 2 hours or something. But like, these guys are all so interesting. And there's at least one person whose entire career is analyzing the works of Masaccio. You know what I mean? And all these guys were just together. This is Savonarola. This is Charles VIII. Okay, I want to tell y'all all the questions that I have. Okay, this is going to be a guide and curiosity. This is going to be fun. Okay. Because the book that I'm reading about the Medicis doesn't cover everything. It just covers stuff about the Medicis, and I keep learning all of these things that I want to like read, and I want to like learn so much, and it's overwhelming. Oh my god, wait. I have to show y'all something. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday. No, I think it was the day before yesterday. I was at the library, and I was just like, I was taking a break because I was working. I was working at the library. I was taking a break. I stood up, and just like on display, this book was like on display. Let me take Savonarola out of here. Hell Put to Shame: The 1921 Murder Farm Massacre and the Horror of America's Second Slavery. I have no idea what this book is about. I did not pick it up. I did not read the back of it. I did not do anything. I just saw it and I was like horrified because here's the thing. There's like a million books exactly like this. And I was just having one of those moments of like, there's too much history. There's actually just too much history sometimes. And also, like, in order to make it as an author, you have to like make everything the most. When you're using a title, you have to catastrophize. I don't know anything about that situation. Maybe it was just as bad as American slavery. I don't know. I literally know nothing. But I hope that it was like kind of a clickbait. Because there's too much fucking history, okay? There's too much history in the world, and it overwhelms me sometimes, and it makes me also feel like my brain is, it makes me feel um like a victim of the attention economy, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm like being targeted, and all of us are being targeted. I'm like not uniquely victimized here, but it makes me feel sometimes like titles are like an act of violence. Because that's just a really big claim to put on a book title. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, Savonarola. I want to know more about what the Dominicans to this day say and think about Savonarola. I did a little bit of light research on like Reddit forums, right? And I could see that Dominicans see him as like a flawed guy who was technically a heretic who died. But I read his story. I'm not even a Dominican, and I'm like, I feel like this guy was mostly good for the Catholic Church. He converted Poliziano, Mirandola, Botticelli, all these humanist artists. He had this massive following in Florence. He was kind of doing theocracy successfully and democratizing Florence at the same time. And it was the Pope who was like one of the worst, most corrupt popes in history who killed him. And so I feel like I want to read more discourse on what modern day people think about Savonarola, and I also just want to know how deep the discourse goes historically. How long have people been talking about him as someone who maybe potentially like deserves more grace from the Catholic canon, okay? Charles VIII of France. This guy is the guy who Savonarola talked about as if he was an instrument of God, making his way across Europe, bringing the kingdom of God with him. And what was he actually doing? Imperialism, and also spreading syphilis across Europe for the first time. And his army was, France was Catholic, but this army troop that he was bringing across Europe was full of jugglers and prostitutes, and they were, R-ing and pillaging, and I want to know more about I want to know more about how this guy is remembered, and what this guy, sorry, this guy. I want to know about how he's remembered, what he actually accomplished, what he didn't accomplish, because I don't know anything about him. I need to learn more about this guy and his army full of syphilis. This is Alexander VI, most corrupt pope in church history. I want to know more about how I, as a Catholic, am supposed to talk about this guy. Because I love rules. I love rules when I have to talk about complicated things, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to figure it out myself. I'm sure there's some guy who's, or woman who's like talked about this guy with a lot of grace and charity and critique all at the same time, and they probably used really good language to do it, and I want to figure out what they said, because I hate this guy. And I want to know how we're supposed to talk about this nightmare pope. Plephon. Plato expert from the Byzantine Empire who brought Plato into Florence, arguably brought Plato into the West for like the first time. For the first time. The man had people tortured brutally, and he fought his way into the position. I don't think he counts as a real deal pope. That's the thing, though. That's the thing, though, is that he does count as a pope. Which, yes, frustrates, annoys, confuses, confounds me. He is a real pope. If he weren't a real pope in the Catholic canon, Savonarola would be a saint. Like, he is a real pope. He is a real pope, and that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing for me. How the fuck? So I need to figure it out. I need to figure it out. I need to figure out how to negotiate with history here, because I really don't like this guy. I really don't like this guy. Let's go on. If he confessed, his sins should be forgiven. Yeah, I don't think he did confess, though. I don't think that's how we know. I don't think that's how we know what he did. I don't think he, like... I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't know enough. But... yeah. I guess I'm actually not super curious about Plaython. I probably wouldn't read that book, to be honest. Sounds boring to me. Sounds boring to me. But he was an expert on Plato. Introduced Plato to the West. Very cool. Cosimo Medici is my favorite Medici. Cosimo Medici is my favorite Medici. I do feel like I've learned so much about him recently that I wouldn't want to read another entire book just on Cosimo Medici, but in my personal canon of people who have saved the world in their own little way, Cosimo Medici is up there, okay? Cosimo Medici is up there. I think he was a really good person. And he suffered a lot with guilt. He suffered a lot with guilt for having as much money as he had. There's not a lot of, like, ridiculously wealthy people that I admire, you know what I mean? But he is one of them. I have yet to, like, really be grossed out by the ways that he uses his money. I don't know. And he spends his money. Like, he didn't hoard it. He didn't hoard it. He spent it on artists. He spent it on the city of Florence. He did trickle-down economics. He died with less than he was born with. He still generated a lot of wealth that he passed down to Lorenzo the Magnificent. Lorenzo the Magnificent. But he spent his whole life spending money on art and on city infrastructure and on festivals and education for the folk people, for all the people, for the Catholic world, for the Italian world, for the Florentine world. And he gave a lot of honor and dignity to artists at a time when it was not conventional to. It wasn't conventional to. And so I like him. I really like Cosimo Medici. Medici. Medici, Medici, Medici. Lorenzo the Magnificent. Lorenzo the Magnificent. I'm gonna be real, I get weird vibes. Hard for me to say why. He had a lot of the same principles and values as his dad. And he continued a lot of the same work as his father. But he seems a little bit more egoistic, a little bit less ascetic, less interested in academics, less and I think he was just a little bit more self-interested, and I'd love to read a good critique on Lorenzo, because I just get vibes. I get like vibes that Lorenzo was, you know, like, I'm probably on his side, but I wouldn't really, I don't know if I would feel like he's as good of a person as his father. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. Yes, Lorenzo and his unsensual upper lip. Exactly. Pruka, 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 pruka. Pruka, 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 pruka. Pruka, pruka, pruka. Pruka, pruka, pruka. The Borgia Pope, Alexander VI by Orestes Ferrara. Is this a good source that you're recommending? I'll save it. I'll save that. I'll save that. Save that. Save that. Save that. Did he do anything wrong, or are those just vibes? So he did a lot of stuff right. I really like his relationships with all of the other. So he grew up with Botticelli, Poliziano, Mirandola, Donatello. He grew up with all these people. All these people were like brothers and uncles and cousins to him. And I love the stories of their interactions, and his brother Giuliano. And he was incredibly charismatic himself. From the time he was like, I can't remember if it was 16 or 19, but his dad, Piero the Gaudi, was sending Lorenzo the Magnificent on political missions to like soothe enemy like tensions, like with Milan and Naples. He was sending little Lorenzo out, teenage Lorenzo out, in order to strike deals with people, and Lorenzo was doing it. Lorenzo was incredibly charismatic, a natural negotiator. People naturally liked him, and maybe that's just it for me. You know, I'm just always a little bit skeptical of people who are too likable, you know? People who are a little bit too likable, a little bit too likable, a little bit too likable. And he was definitely less ascetic. Like, we know that he wore extraordinarily valuable jewelry. He enjoyed dressing up for jousting tournaments in like the most extravagant armor. And he tried to dress up Donatello. Remember, he tried to dress up Donatello, and Donatello was like, I just want to dress like a worker, don't give me fancy clothes. And Lorenzo was like, you must be fancy. So yeah, I don't know, like, I just get slightly darker, weirder vibes from him, but I think he was still a good person, just, not quite as, not quite as something as his father was, okay? Not quite as something. Niccolo Niccoli! This isn't even Niccolo Niccoli, this is Donatello. But Niccolo Niccoli is the guy who wrote, is the guy who made the italics. I really like hearing about both Niccolo Niccoli and, what's this guy's name? Bracciolini. Niccolo Niccoli and Bracciolini are the two guys who Cosimo Medici funded their like manuscript hunting basically throughout all of Europe. And so they were like adventurers going out and finding manuscripts, like treasure hunters. And I love learning about those stories, and I wish I had even more stories. And it was Niccolo Niccoli whose handwriting modeled italics, and it was Bracciolini whose handwriting modeled Times New Roman, or any Roman type font, because they both, whenever they were done hunting down manuscripts, they transcribed. And I think it was Niccolo Niccoli who did something like, I think he did like hundreds of books, if I remember correctly. Let me see if I found it. I did not write down the number, but the Medici Library, which was founded by Cosimo in 1444, like the first texts that were in there, it was just full of transcriptions that Niccolo Niccoli did. That was his life's work, and it was enough to start a library with. So I really like this guy. I think he was cool. I think it's cute that he was like transcribing for his entire life, and we have some letters from him where he was saying, I keep trying to write my own stuff, and I feel like nothing I write is good enough. Boo-hoo, I'm not a real artist like all the people I love. I'll just keep transcribing instead. I think that's really cute, and I respect him for that. I like it. 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 Brunelleschi is the guy who did the dome, right? Who did the dome, and he had a crazy temper, and he was so paranoid that he began to write all of his notes in a cipher. In a cipher. Brunelleschi had unfathomable main character energy. Unfathomable main character energy. And Brunelleschi was the teacher to Donatello. One of the teachers to Donatello. Yes, Brunelleschi was the guy who lost the door challenge. Brunelleschi was the guy who lost the door challenge. The guy who lost the door challenge. The guy who lost the door challenge. A legendary crash out, indeed. Indeed. Some things don't need to be made gay, you know, like, I think there is a genuine problem right now of, like, revisionist history making too many things gay, but some things really were gay, you know, and it's Pride Month right now. I think it's important to talk about how gay the Renaissance was. It really was very gay. It really, really, really was, okay? This is not some kind of postmodern idea of it. This is not some kind of revisionist history. This is not some kind of wokeism. The Renaissance was really gay. They were really gay. And I want to know more. I want to know more about how that was socially navigated in the time, because it was illegal, technically. It wasn't technically illegal. You technically could be burned at the stake for sodomy, right? But it was an open secret that a lot of these guys were gay. And I think that that's cool and interesting, and I want to know more about how it was socially navigated by the people, by the artists, by the authorities, by the church. I don't know enough. I don't know enough about how all that went down. But I think it's interesting. What's the door challenge? So, the Santa Maria del Fiore. Santa Maria del Fiore. Let me pull up a picture of that. Let me pull up a picture of the Santa Maria del Fiore. So this church in Florence was started in like the 1100s or something, and then the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, struck, and Florence went through a series of plagues and fires and ruin, and this was basically a construction project for like 300 years that was never finished. This dome wasn't finished. Let me pull up the doors too. Let me pull up the doors so I can show you the doors. And at some point, with Medici money, the Signoria, which is like kind of the acting government in Florence, they decided to hold a competition. I'm trying to get a good picture. Of these doors. Hold a competition for doors to support local artists. And Ghiberti, I think his name is Ghiberti, submitted a sketch of these doors, and he was a completely unknown country boy artist, okay? That's not what I wanted to do. He was a completely unknown country boy artist. And Brunelleschi also submitted sketches for these doors, and Brunelleschi was so pissed off that Ghiberti won the competition that Brunelleschi completely gave up on fine arts and sculpture and went to the Parthenon in Rome to try and recall how to build domes, because the people had forgotten how to build domes, y'all. They didn't know how to build them. There were historical temples, or historic temples and churches, cathedrals in Europe that had domes, and the knowledge of how to build them had been lost to time. And so Brunelleschi went to the Parthenon with baby Donatello, and Donatello was like a little teenager. Brunelleschi was having a temper tantrum, and Brunelleschi said, "I'm gonna figure out how to make a dome. I'm gonna figure out how to make a dome." And so then he did. And he went back to Florence and was like, "I'm gonna make a dome. I'm gonna make a dome. I'm gonna make a dome right now. That's what I'm gonna do. That's what I'm gonna do." And so Ghiberti built the doors of the Santa Maria del Fiore, and Brunelleschi built the dome. And Brunelleschi was paranoid that Ghiberti was going to steal his research, which is why Brunelleschi wrote all of his notes in a cipher, because he was paranoid about Ghiberti for the rest of his life. He was really pissed off. Super pissed off. Absolute temper tantrum. Thank you for your super chat. Thank you for your super chat. It's the same in modern day Russia. Gayness is pretty much illegal, but they don't ask, don't tell. But but on don't ask, don't tell basis you kind of get by. Yeah. This is a pretty good sound, isn't it? This is a pretty good sound, isn't it? Alright. Now, where was I? Where was I in my list? Oh my gosh, Ficino, the hunchback Plato expert? Yes. Yes. I think Ficino reminds me of Ishmael. Ishmael the ape. By Daniel Quinn. Because he was a philosopher living on a rich man's estate. This is my favorite philosophy book of all time, mostly for sentimental reasons, because it's the first philosophy book I ever read. But these guys, same people to me. Same people, same vibe that I'm getting from these two images. Bill, thank you for gifting a membership. Who's this one again? Oh, this is Poliziano. This is Poliziano. Yeah, I want to read more of Poliziano's works. I don't know how many of them have even been translated into English, but he was a poet, right? And he's the guy who was doing all of the talking about the social dynamics of like what was happening in the Medici household. And I wish I could read more of his poetry, because I think he was just writing like diss tracks on everyone. He was just writing diss tracks on everyone all the time. So I want to know more. I wish I could read Italian. I wish I could learn every language. I wish I knew 20 languages like Pico della Mirandola. You know, if I could learn 20 languages, and I'm not going to do these in any particular order, I'm going to do it on the Mirandola page. It's pay tribute. As an homage, okay? In no particular order. These are all the languages that I want to learn, that I'm never going to learn, okay? This is annoying that I can't type as big as I want to. those are core, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know if I should. I feel like Mandarin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Click, 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 click. Oh, Latin. Duh. Thank you. Thank you, super. Thank you, super. Thank you, super. Oh, I think they have a word for their language that's not Navajo, but I want to learn an indigenous language, and I think that that's the one that's most spoken. So I feel like I should go with that one. Korean. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 17, 18. Okay, I can only choose two more. 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 one more. What's my last language? 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 I think Portuguese is a good. I think Portuguese probably is a good one. I think I should go with Portuguese. I don't think I'm gonna learn one more language, y'all. This guy knew 20 languages. Can you imagine having all this in your head? I mean, I'm sure he did. He chose different ones, but craziness. Yeah, I don't think Pico della Mirandola learned Navajo. But absolute craziness. Absolute craziness. Absolute craziness. 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 I want to learn more about the beef between Da Vinci and Michelangelo. I also want to know what other people thought about what other people, like the contemporaries of Michelangelo, thought of him. Because in my reading, I've learned what Da Vinci thought of him. I've learned that Lorenzo de' Medici was at the very least a little bit endeared to him at some point. But I'm curious about like what other people thought. What other people thought. What other people thought about Michelangelo. I think it would be so fun to see a show about Filippo Lippi and his escapades across Europe, painting Madonnas. Because that was really what he would do. Like, he would go into different monasteries and he would say, "Would you like to model for the Virgin Mary for me?" And it was a pickup line. It was a pickup line. It was a pickup line, which is like just hilarious. Just freaking hilarious. It reminds me of like those Instagram guys. There's something in my eye. I'm sorry, y'all. But it reminds me of those like Instagram guys that are like, hey, I'm a photographer. Let me take a photo of you. There's something in my eye. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Ah. I'm fine. But yeah, I would love to see a TV show about Yes, the keyboard. The keyboard is always here. Keyboard is always here. Who would you cast as Felipe? I don't know. Could be anyone. I don't know actors' names, y'all. I don't know actors' names. Henry Cavill? I feel like Henry Cavill's like... I mean, I guess if you want to make it that kind of movie. I kind of wanted like someone kind of a little bit more bumbling, you know? I was kind of picturing a comedy, okay? I was kind of picturing like a Jack Black sort of guy. You know, I don't know. I was picturing someone kind of quirked up. All right, my friends, I think we're going to end the stream here. I've had so much fun talking about all of these different Renaissance figures. Michael Cera would be pretty funny too. I do agree with that, Ogden. I would watch any. This is why I like theater. Okay, this is why I like theater. Is because I like to see the same script performed again and again and again by a different cast. All right, that's why we go see Hamlet more than once. That's why we go see Hamlet more than once, right? Because everyone brings something new and beautiful and interesting to Hamlet. Short Hamlet, tall Hamlet, hot Hamlet, ugly Hamlet, muscular Hamlet, endomorph Hamlet. All of them. I want all of them, okay? Quirky Hamlet, corporate Hamlet, all of them. And I want that with all of my Renaissance people too. Hogsilla, thank you so much for your tip. I really truly appreciate it so much. It means so much to me. Thank you. Thank you. And now we are going to go raid one of my favorite people in the world who I collaborated with very recently. If they are still streaming. Tropical stuck. Yes, it looks like they are streaming. Although maybe not. Their stream is like freezing up for me right now. Let's see. They do stream. For some reason their stream is like not working for me though. The video download was cancelled. So maybe they just finished streaming or something like that. I don't know. But what we can do is go to mirrors. She's live on YouTube? Well, that's good to know. Alright, everyone. Let's just go raid her on YouTube. We're gonna confuse Twitch for a second. Because I don't think Twitch is working. But everyone on Twitch, go check out Tropical Stuck on YouTube. Okay, that's where we're gonna go right now. And everyone on YouTube, you should be able to click that linky. I'm linking it in both chats, I believe. So, I hope you'll all have a wonderful, wonderful night. Sleep well, and think about the Renaissance, think about community, and I will see y'all next time. Good night, good night, good night, good night. Goodbye.